Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. My name is Harrison Lung. I'm a partner at Siris Capital and also very fortunate to be a TKU board member. I wanted to welcome you today to today's Lunch and Learn, featuring John Pluhowski here from TD Bank. TKU is very excited and honored to have John here today as we are currently in partnership with TD Bank as our 2022 Platinum sponsor. John is the TD Bank's Chief Communication Officer and Executive Sponsor and Lead for the bank's Individual with Diverse Ability Area of Focus. Before we get started, because I know I would not do enough justice in introducing John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you got involved in this space?
So thank you, Harrison, and thank you for the invitation. And I'm more honored to be with you because this is a topic that I have great passion about. So I do run communications for TD Bank. Think of us as a top 5 leading bank in the US. So like a Chase Manhattan Bank or a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America. Our function is to drive all communication across all of our key audiences, so employees, communities, customers, building community relationships like the one we have here, to make sure that we're getting back to the community where we live and where we work. I'm very passionate about the disability space, so much so that when I joined TD Bank back in 2014, I came from California. I was at PayPal at that time. Our middle child has autism, so he's on the spectrum. And
Wait, who has autism?
my son, John Byron. And when I was in my early career, I never talked about it.
Wait, you didn't share your name though.
John Pluhowski. His name is John, and his name is John too. So when I came to TD Bank, I started talking about the relationship I have with my son, and they said, well, you know, this is something that we are very committed to, which is making sure that we created an inclusive environment for our people to work, and we want to attract people to this organization who have all abilities. And my view of it is people with disabilities sometimes have even greater skill sets because they focus on the things that matter to them, the things that they want to do. So they asked if I would be responsible, not just for communications, but for our disabilities area of focus, which means the bank is so committed to disabilities that we want to make sure that we are attracting, meaning we're hiring, we are retaining, meaning we're keeping the people we attract, and we're mentoring. We're not just providing jobs, we're providing meaningful career opportunities. So that's something that's very important to us. When this opportunity came along, I said, absolutely want to talk about it.
Very good. We'll take some Q&A towards the tail end, Milo. Okay, thank you. So you sort of started getting into it. Maybe tell us a little bit of TD's vision and sort of mandate in this area. I know looking online, you guys are sort of leading in many areas, particularly here with good scoring on the disability equality index. We also saw that from your annual report. You're one of the few organizations that actually mention neurodiversity as what I would call under the DE&I umbrella, because not everyone actually does that. Maybe just walk us through a little bit of how you actually think about this area of focus for the bank, in addition to some of the other things that you lead.
More than happy to do that. So when I became what we call the executive sponsor for individuals with diverse abilities, in effect, disabilities, I asked our senior leaders, I said, what do you want us to do differently going forward? So I know exactly what you're hoping to do. And they said, John, we want to be recognized as the #1 company for people with disabilities, not just in banking, but in all corporate America. So think about all the great brands that you all love, to be #1. And I said, that's a pretty big order to go from where we are, which was a good position, to #1. So in 2022, this year, in May, Diversity Inc., which is notably the most important organization when it comes to looking at the rankings of organizations based on inclusion, and that includes disability. We rank #1. #1 in the US in attracting, retaining, and mentoring individuals with disabilities. And we are proud of that. There is a challenge about being #1. How do you stay there? Right? Because we're proud of that. And everyone says, well, what are you going to do for us next year? I said, we're going to hire more people, and we're going to retain more people, and we're going to mentor more people, And we want to continue to inspire other organizations to do the same thing. And we want to invest in community organizations and educational institutions to do the same. That's why we have our partnership here.
That's great to hear. And we look forward to working with TD Bank to maintaining the #1.
Thank you.
Given the criticality of this area and this topic, how do you encourage other organizations to step up to the plate? It's great to see TD as sort of market leading, but there's many other large companies out there, whether it's financial services, technology, et cetera. How do you sort of make that push more broadly?
Yeah, so great question, Harrison. Thank you. So it's really interesting. If you think about when you and I started looking for a job,
Mhm.
we were just looking for a job.
Mhm.
We wanted someplace that wanted us and they would pay us to do good work. And that's how I always thought about it when I graduated from school. Find the job. Didn't matter where it was. Find the job and what you have passion for. And I would say, please always follow your passion. Focus on the things that you have passion for. But it's different today. When you're looking for a job and you're out of school, you want to make sure that the values of the organization that you're looking at are aligned to your values. So think about the brands that you love most. There's one that I admire, Bose, who makes the headphones. I admire them because they have a specialty, which is making sure they help those who have hypersensitive hearing be able to navigate the world of noise all around us to make their life better. And that's something that means something to me. That's a value that I appreciate. So we are the same way at TD. We are deeply committed to inclusion. We believe we are stronger when we hire people in our organization with diverse abilities, with diverse talents, diverse across the spectrum of everyone, because it makes us more competitive, it makes us stronger, and guess what? It actually engages our employees in ways that otherwise it wouldn't. So really important for us as an organization, not just to talk about it. A lot of great brands talk about it. Our job is to actually deliver on it. And the more diverse we become, the more inclusive we become. And that's something that's really important to us.
Great. This is great to hear. It's great to hear that we can all partner together to continue this journey.
Absolutely.
Now let's sort of switch it up a little bit. We have many people here with us in person today, and also many people using the hybrid model joining us on Zoom as well. For many people who are both in attendance on both sides, they are sort of actually students or people early in their careers.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get to a level of practicality for people, as you said, looking for that job, building on that purpose. Why don't you start with, what are some of the high-level suggestions that you can provide for students in this room and also on Zoom for them as they look for this position and how they can leverage technology and others in doing so?
So great question again. And I'll tell you exactly how we approach it, at least at TD Bank, particularly when we're talking to people that we're interested who we may want to have join our organization, which is talking about how do you get the job. And there's a few things that I would suggest that I think really matter a lot. One, be grounded in what you know you want to do. Have an idea. You have a passion, you think you're really good at something, you think it's a skill set you want to deepen and you want to sharpen. Know where you want to be. Follow your passion. That's number one. Number two is make sure that you're out there, meaning you are engaging on channels where organizations like TD Bank are looking for people. So raise your hand if you have a LinkedIn profile. I will tell you, LinkedIn is it's kind of like Facebook for career. That's okay. But I just want you to know, so you have one. So I would just say this. It's okay. At some point, I will let you know that where organizations are going to look for talent, the first place they will go is actually on LinkedIn, because they want to see who's out there that may have the skills and experiences that we're looking for. That's something that's really important to do. So if you have a profile, you want to be able to start doing some of the things that help share the things that are important to you. Content, articles, sharing the information. That's important. The three is, if values are important to you, if there's companies that you think are super cool, and you think that's an organization I want to work for, then have your list and actually follow those companies and learn about those companies. And when they post positions, whether they're doing it on job boards, whether they're doing it on corporate websites like our own, if you're looking for a job at TD Bank in what you're studying, let's say it's technology, I will send you the link where you can go and look at what jobs we're posting. And you can say that aligns to what is important to me. And by the way, I like TD Bank because I know how committed they are to disability inclusion. And I want to learn more about those jobs. So those are things you want to do. Fourth thing. Know that company you're going to be interviewing with, as well as the person that you're interviewing with. What I love most is when I'm interviewing a candidate, like I was this week for a technology position, who did her homework. She knew everything about our company. She knew where we were in the markets. She knew the products and services we sold. She saw things on our website that said, you know, you can do that better. I'm like, tell me how we can do that better. And whether I agreed or not didn't really matter. What mattered was the fact she had curiosity. She did an investment. She learned about us, learned about the companies you love, you want to work for. And every one of them has a job board. Everyone will say, here are the positions we're looking for, because they too as well have a responsibility to make sure they are hiring inclusively across all spectrums to make sure that you have an opportunity. It's as simple as this. Where do you fish? You fish where the fish are. And you know where the fish are? Those are those companies that you love, you want to work for. And you can go right to their website. There's another web link I want to send you all to as well. If you're interested, start thinking about it now, because if you're thinking about a job a year from now, 2 years from now, you want to start planning for it now. I'm going to send you a link. Microsoft is so committed to this. It's another one of those brands I love. They're purpose-driven. Microsoft creates technology, products and services, not for some people. Their mission is for everybody. That's purpose-driven. That matters to me. That's important to me. It's probably important to all of you. You probably are very impressed with Microsoft, maybe a little bit more Apple because of the cool factor, but still, Microsoft is a pretty cool company too as well. They launched a website earlier this year that's just focused on neurodiverse talent, individuals with disabilities, and it's a hub not just for Microsoft, but for every company that signed up for it. Guess who's one of those companies? TD Bank. On the board of directors of disability, and that's an organization I'm on the board. You have Marriott Corporation, you have Boeing, you have Apple Computer, you have Microsoft, you have Bank of America, you have Wells Fargo, you have CVS, you have Walgreens. They're all there. They're saying, here are the positions we have. Are you interested? I will tell you, the job that you want is out there. What you have to do is make sure you stand out among everyone else is looking at that same job, because you know what you want to do. You've got the passion, you've got the skills. 2, you've done your research, you know that company really well. 3, you found out where they're posting their jobs and you're raising your hand, you're applying. Every interview doesn't land a job, and guess what? Every interview helps condition you and help you get to the next level and make that next interview better. It's a great experience. That's the best way to approach it, in my view. And that's who ends up working for us. But guess what? It's the same model that most organizations use as well.
That's amazing to hear, particularly the iconic brands that you spoke of, probably employs millions of people within America. And I think that the advice is very practical for people in the room as well as on Zoom, where don't treat the job search process as a very transactional, throw my resume over the wall, but really, how do you start that journey in a continuous process? Build a relationship, do the research, really understand your capabilities, the roles that you want to do, and then building that plan.
Exactly right.
One thing you mentioned that I thought was also really interesting, and you started alluding to it, was the interview with the technologist earlier this week. And I know off stage, before we got started, you shared with us a story about Ike. And I thought that was a really inspirational story, particularly maybe something you can share with the room here today.
So I'd love to. And if I want to send you a few things that I think are kind of sort of like a homework assignment, are you guys cool taking that on? Be easy. It's all around finding a job, career opportunity, right? It's going to be fun. Actually, we're going to make it fun for you. So I mentioned this organization called Disability In. Every year they have an annual conference. You all know what annual conferences are. It's when you get a bunch of people together, they're like-minded, they're focused on one thing. Disability In, guess what they're focused on? They're focused on helping you get a job.
That's an annual conference with parent teacher conference.
Kind of sort of like that with 500 people in the room, actually 5,000 people.
Oh, well, annual conference is a small group of teachers and some parents.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
take that and multiply that by 3,000 or 4,000, and that's how many people show up for these conferences. So they have a career fair. And what they do is they give every company 30 minutes to speak to a room about this size. For the company to say, here's who we are, this is what we're looking for. If you're interested, we'd like to talk to you. You get 30 minutes, you walk out of the room, Microsoft comes in next, and Apple comes in, Shell Oil comes in, Bank of America comes in, you get 30 minutes. So we showed up at 12 o'clock and 12:30 to make our presentation right after Ernst & Young, very notable accounting firm, consulting firm. And I said to the organizer, I said, what can we do differently than every other company so we can become really relatable to potential employees in the room? And they said, just let them ask you your questions. Don't just tell them what you want. Find out more what they're interested in. And we did exactly that. So one young man, his name is Ike, was in the room and he had a lot of questions. I also knew that Ike did the one thing that really impresses us. He knew us. He knew about TD Bank. He knew what we do. He actually watched all some of our technology saying, here's some things you should think about doing. And we had this conversation during this big career day meeting. And when our time was up, he followed me down the hallway. And he said, can I continue the conversation? I said, Ike, absolutely. What do you want to talk about? He goes, I think I'm the exact person you need on your technology team. And I think you should hire me. And guess what Ike did? He stood out against all the other people in that room. He showed great passion, certainly the energy to literally follow me down the hall to say, you need to hire me because I can help your organization. And he did his homework. So guess what happened? I said, Ike, we're going to connect you to our recruitment, our talent team and HR. They're going to reach out to you. When we say we're going to do that, we do that. And guess what happened 3 weeks ago? Can you imagine what happened 3 weeks ago?
He became head of the technology department.
Guess what? Exactly. He now is an employee. He's now an, well, he could very well be a leader of something in the next couple of years, but I will tell you this. He is today a technologist in the technology department at TD Bank. And yesterday we invited him to come to our annual disability summit to tell his story. And it was absolutely amazing. What did our head of technology say? He was in the room. We want to hire more people like Ike, which brings us here. What did he do? He did everything we said we did. He put his profile out there on LinkedIn. He did his homework. He stood out from the crowd and he followed us down the hall. Never be shy to make sure you're putting yourself right out there. That's the best way to connect the dots between what you want and what the company is looking for.
Maybe on that last point, the steps that you mentioned are definitely best practices and we should all adhere to. But for individuals with neurodiverse abilities, oftentimes it could be more difficult to quote unquote get out there and be aggressive and be proactive. How do you suggest individuals sort of go through the whole networking and relationship building phase if it's not something that people are usually either comfortable with or accustomed to?
Yeah, so great question. So biggest challenge for companies these days is trying to find you. Every organization, every brand that you love will say, yeah, we really do want to hire more neurodiverse talent. We do want to hire more people with disabilities. We don't know where to find them. So we're a little bit like, well, it's kind of on us then, right? The companies that figure out how to find them. So that's when we developed our relationship with Disability and they are the world's largest organization supporting businesses who are trying to recruit more people who have disabilities to their organizations because they know it's important to the business. They know it's important to the community and they know it's important to their employees. So that's when Microsoft said, we're going to create a website, a careers website, not just for us, Microsoft, every organization that is committed to this space of disability, we want to bring more people into the organization. So when I shared that link with Harrison and he shares it with all of you, I want you to look at it every day. Unless you're like, I'm not ready to start going out there right now and start looking for a job. But when you are, that's where you want to go. We're interviewing 10 people right now who came to the Microsoft site because they're interested in TD, not Microsoft, they're interested in us. So we're going to give you the home because it's the very reason why they created that website. In addition to that, I'll send another link because the link I send you will show you every company that's committed to this space. I'm not saying every organization is looking to hire more neurodiverse talent and more people with disabilities, but guess what? There are hundreds of companies out there. There's no shortage of companies for you to look at if indeed that's what you want to do.
Any suggestion on how best to sort of disclose that one is neurodiverse during this either networking process or application process? Because sometimes in many cases the online application asks for it, but also at other times, during the more networking verbal stage, it's not as readily apparent or easy to disclose it. Any suggestion on that front?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is the organizations that are really focused and committed to what we're talking about are the organizations that actually set up diversity hiring managers or diversity recruiters. At TD Bank, we actually have a set of recruiters that are just in the disability space. That's all they do. They focus on talent coming into this organization that have a disability. Those are the organizations that are the ones that you want to look for because they will know exactly how to help you navigate the opportunity within their organization. And again, they are out there. As it relates to self-identifying, which I think is what we're talking about here. You know the true reasons why people are reluctant to self-identify?
Oh. No.
There's two reasons why, and this isn't all the research, so it's not just what I'm telling you because I believe this. What's one? Go ahead.
Jobs. I don't recruit agents. Not.
You got to start somewhere though, right? So it's actually not so much age. People believe two things. If I self-identify, I won't get the job. Or if I self-identify, I won't keep the job. The reason why people don't self-identify. The US government has a mandate. They expect organizations to have a certain percentage of employees who self-identify to have a disability. The more trusting you are of that company, meaning you believe that you can aspire to do whatever you want to do, and you can aspire to the level you want to go to. Even if you have a disability, those are the organizations you want to focus on most. And guess what? Those organizations have the highest percentage of employees who are comfortable self-identifying because they know it's not going to slow them down to achieve what they want to achieve professionally. And we, TD Bank today, are in the top 10% of all Fortune 1000 companies with the highest percentage of employees who self-identify because they feel it's a trusted, safe environment for them to be themselves and for them to be able to feel like their disability is not going to hold them back. Those are the organizations. Every one of those organizations you will find when I send you these various career links, because those are the organizations that have already built that into their culture.
Now, we go through that process of researching, securing the interview. Any practical tips for the people in the room here today on Zoom on how best to either act or communicate during the interview process?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is start thinking about your resume. Do you have a resume? And if you don't, start thinking about how you want to organize your resume, because that's really, really important to make sure you have that right. Two is start thinking about what industries do you want to work for. Not everyone wants to work for a company. Some people like to work for a community organization, nonprofit, right? Think about where your space is, where you want to go. The third is to make sure that you're looking at your passion, the things you want to do, right? The things you want to start working on. By the way, internships are super important. Because internships give you the one thing that organizations are looking for, job experience. And if you can find an internship that's aligned to your passion within the industry that you want to be in, within the culture you want to be in, whether it's a values-driven brand or not, that gets you to a really, really good place. Then identify those companies, those organizations, and study them. And you know what? You don't have to wait to find a job posting. There's an easy way to go right to their HR department or go right to somebody who works for that company who's on LinkedIn and say, you know what, I saw this job. I'm really interested in learning more about this organization. I will tell you how many people we have hired simply because they reached out to us or we reached out to them through some of these career sites or even actually through LinkedIn.
Oh, very good. So you mentioned resume and LinkedIn. I would imagine that HR and large organizations such as yourselves get a ton of resume every year via email and whatnot. How do you suggest for the people in the room here today to get that resume to really stand out so that it gets picked by HR?
Well, what you want to be able to show on your resume is that you have a career goal.
Mhm.
Right up front, you want to have a statement, a personal statement as far as your skills and the passion you have in the area of interest you have. Because honestly, people sometimes when they're reading resumes and they're looking at hundreds of these a week, they're not looking past the first 3 or 4 sentences. You want to have it right up there. Career goal. This is what I want to do. That'll get people's attention. And then right below that, every related experience that you have that you can put into that, you want to do that as well. And then the third piece is putting down your educational experience, right? Where you've gone to school, high school, college. If you had an internship, I will tell you one thing, internships differentiate you. Because when I'm looking for talent, and you mentioned in the back of the room age, when I'm looking for actually talent right out of college, I want to see an internship. And when I see 2 internships, that's even better than when I'm looking at somebody who may just have 1. And I see somebody who's had 2 or 3, then I'm like, let's put them at the top of the list. work experience is really, really important. If there's an opportunity for you to have an internship, and who knows, sometimes you have an internship and they want to hire you. They don't want you to go anywhere. I can tell you how many interns I've hired because we didn't want them to go somewhere else. That's what's really, really important to do. And then secondly, think about somebody who's in your family, a friend, somebody who's in communications like me. If any of you send me your resume, you're like, John, I want you to look at my resume and I want you to make it better for me. I have a son who has autism. And I know that I have to be a good parent to make sure I am supporting him and I'm helping him stand out from everyone else. And I will do that for you as well. You want me to look at your resume? I'm going to give you my business card. You send it to me. I'd be more than happy to look at it. Be more than happy to edit it if you're okay with me doing that, because sometimes it'll come back with a lot of edits and a lot of changes. But you want that because it makes it better. You want to be able to stand out. And by the way, don't be shy to do this. The best job that I've ever had in my career was a job where the company I was looking at, I love so much. I sent the CEO a letter. And in the letter, I said, you have had a great run, a very successful company under your leadership. I am so impressed. And I want to learn more about your organization because I would love to work for it. 3 days later, I get a phone call from his secretary. It says, Mr. Hook was really impressed with your letter. It's like none he's never seen before. He'd like to know if you could fly to Houston next week to come and visit him. And I'm like, you're kidding? This really works. Got on an airplane. I went to Houston. I went up to his office. It was like this. It was like the land of Oz. I'm like 56th floor. There were 3 security guards that had to usher me into his office. And it was an outer office. I had to wait for him to come out. He greeted me. He walked me in his office. He sat me down. He said, tell me about your story and who you are. And I realized I did something that no one else did. I wrote a letter to the CEO. You're not expecting to get a response from that. And he said, I want to stop you for 1 second, John. I want to say something to you. You did something I haven't seen since I did it in the early 50s. I wrote a letter to the CEO, and your letter is just like mine. I want to show it to you. He pulls his letter out because he did this 30 years before, and I'm looking at my letter. And he's like, this was meant to be. We talked for 2.5 hours, and he said, you know what, before you leave here today, I'm going to make you a job offer. Now, I was living in Washington, D.C. with my wife and 2 kids. I had no idea this flight was going to lead to an interview in Houston, Texas. So I called my wife after he made the offer and I accepted. I said, honey, we're moving in 2 weeks. Then I called a friend of mine who's a recruiter saying, I've never heard that story before. I've read it in books, but never in real life. I said, well, it's really happened. Then we moved to Houston. And guess what? I was there 21 years. And that job led me to the next job. It's led me to the job that I'm in right now at TD Bank, and which brings us together. What I'm saying is, do the things that no one else is doing. And guess what? The old-fashioned way of just writing a letter and sending it to somebody actually will get somebody's attention. Don't be shy to do that. Okay.
That's amazing to hear. Thank you for offering your services. The resume.
Send me your resume. I'm telling you, I don't offer that to people that are coming to me any other way, but I want to make sure that you receive every advantage and every opportunity to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position that allows you to find that job of your dreams. Because once you find it, there's no better feeling. When a company says to you, an organization says to you, we want to hire you to do this job, guess what? That's going to be a really special day you're never going to forget.
No, thanks for that again, John. I know we spend a lot of our time talking about the interview process and getting a job. Maybe you can spend a few minutes here talking about while you're on the job, any tips or practical steps.
So there's 3 things you want to be able to do. So you got the job, right? Let's assume you got the job. What's the next thing you want to do? You want to keep the job. And you want that to lead to the next job, the next opportunity. 3 things that I will tell you will make all the difference. It's always made the difference for me in my career. One is you want to be a really good listener. You want to go on your own little listening tour. You want to actually talk to the people on the team in the organization that can help you think about the job that you're in and how you can support them. That's kind of number 1. Number 2 is, in addition to being a good listener, you want to ask really, really good questions. You want to make sure that you know a little bit about the person you're talking to, what function they have, and what you can do to support them, because they want to know what value you can provide them as well to help them achieve their goals. And the third is, after 30 days or so, you want to be able to come back and say, here's what I learned from all the conversations I had. Here are the things I think we should be thinking about doing, in addition to what you've asked me to do. And I'd like to have the conversation. Those will really help a lot. Be a good listener, ask good questions, and do your homework. Those are the things that will really help you get off to a good start. Why is that important? Because what are you building when you're doing that? You're building your network. Like you're thinking about building your network because we talked about it, right? Things you want to do to make sure you're putting yourself out there so people know who you are and may be interested in wanting to follow up with you. You want to make sure you're building your network inside as well, because that creates opportunities. One, and it builds friendships, and you learn from others as well. And that's a position you want to find yourself in. Once you land that job and you feel like you want to get up to a good start. There's books about 30, 60, 90 days, what you should do in the first 30 days, in the first 60 days, the next 90 days. But you know what? Don't put a time frame to it. Just do the right things. Get out there and reach people. Get out of your comfort zone. Do the things that maybe are a little bit uncomfortable. You know it's important to do. And one of those things is just basically knocking on doors, introducing yourself, letting people know you're really excited to be here and I'm here to help. I say to people all the time when I'm meeting them for the first time, I've been with the bank for 8.5 years, but I'm still meeting people because they're new to the organization. First thing I always say is try to break the ice. I always say I'm coming in peace. So they kind of feel like I'm relaxed, and then we can have a conversation and we can talk about what's important to them and how I can help them. Well, think about that, okay? Be curious. Be a good listener. Do your homework. Find your passion. Those are the things that are really going to help you get to where you want to go.
You talked about sort of once you're on the job, doing the networking and the next opportunity, you even share a little bit in your journey. Any tips or suggestions for the people here? Because nowadays, people don't stay in their roles for 30 years in their career. You know, a couple of years, 2-3 years, you learn and you move on. How should our students and young professionals here think about that?
Well, I mean, the thing you want to do is you always want to extend your network. So you're going to be doing that internally, right? Because you're knocking on doors, you're meeting people, and you're expanding your base. You also want to make sure that the things that you're passionate about, you're sharing that with others. So one of the best ways to make sure you're building your network outside the organization, because you never know when someone else is going to do this. Knock on your door because they read about you. In fact, you shared a piece of content on your LinkedIn profile. You said, this is really important because this is going to change the direction of business in this industry going forward. Someone's going to say, wow, she's like-minded. He's like-minded. They're thinking about the same things I'm thinking about. Let's go ahead and IM them and see if we can have a conversation to learn a little bit more about them. Share content, right? Build your network. Actually, every industry, every business that you want to go in, any organization you want to work for, there are associations, there are trade groups, right? You want to be part of those trade groups that helps you build your network. And guess what? That introduces you to more people who may be interested in wanting to have a conversation. I had never in my career have had to look for a job except when I sent that letter to the CEO. Because I put myself out there. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, and I want you to, I'm posting content. I'm talking about things. I'm blogging about things that are important to me because guess what? What's important to you is also important to somebody else, and that makes a connection. You want to make as many connections as you can make, and you want to leverage social media in a responsible way to help elevate your profile. Then you'll never be looking for a job again because they're going to come to you. Isn't that nice?
It's amazing to hear. I know we only have a few minutes left, and I know that there were some questions in the room and potentially online. So why don't we open up the floors to see? Oh, please.
Well, does that mean that like you work at any one of the brand like places like Bank and Chase Bank? Like when you work at the Bank, that it gives you a lot of money.
Well, if you want to be in the technology space, let's say that's the area of focus that you have. And you appreciate, like we all appreciate, how important technology is to every organization, particularly in the digital age and the social media age. You're going to find yourself in a profession that is going to your question, pay you well if pay is important to you. But you know what? I hire a lot of people. Money is not their motivator. They don't really care about the money. I do. I want to make sure we compensate them fairly, right? They're working for you because they love your organization, they love your brand, or they love the opportunity you're giving them because they realize that's going to lead to something bigger and better. But if you're thinking about technology, it is hot space right now. We made a public announcement a few months ago. We want to hire 2,000 technologists in the US because the demands that our customers have for us to have really top-notch technology platforms is leading us to make sure we are hiring all the right people at every level, entry level, mid-size level, senior level. Would be interested in knowing more about you and what your capabilities are and your experiences are. When you're trying to hire 2,000 people in 1 year. Get excited about that. I'd be chasing us. I'd be following me. I would be liking my content. I'd be sharing it with others. I'd make sure you're doing the same thing because that makes a connection. That's what you want to try to do. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, if you have any job, well, if you want to start a job, like when you grow up, like, if you want to be the chief of the TV bank or the officer of the TV bank.
Yeah, well, guess what you should do? You should never, ever put constraint on what you want to do. Whatever your desire is, whatever your wish is, whatever your passion is, shoot for the stars. I never thought I was gonna be a chief communications officer, but I knew I wanted to be one. And guess what? I realized my dream because I did the very things that we're talking about today. Never let anyone ever tell you you can't do what you want to do.
Okay.
And it takes many years, so keep on trying, keep on growing, keep on learning. Take those steps to get there. So you had a question?
How do you tell someone that you need to break at work without making a big deal about it?
That's a very good question.
You need a break at work?
No, how do you tell someone they need to break at work without making?
That you need a break at work? You
need a
need
break?
a break, yeah,
I mean, like, just take a break.
Yeah.
Oh,
without making too big of a deal about it.
you know what? Yes, so, that's a great question, by the way. Because I'm looking for people all the time, and sometimes I can't find them. I'm like, where are they?
Yeah, another thing that like for instance, or like having a sensory overload, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, what's really, really important is that you are working for aligned to an organization whose culture is inclusive, where you can have that conversation even during the job interview. That I have some needs that I want to make sure you, the organization, are aware of. So as you're thinking about hiring me, I'll be supported in a way that sets me up for success. That conversation you want to have on the front end. And the organization says, you know what? That inspires us even more to want to hire you, then you know you're good. You want to put that right up front. And most organizations, the ones we're talking about, the ones I mentioned that you can find easily, once I send you a few links, all those organizations, we're going to give you that same answer saying, tell us what you need, we'll make sure we support you. I mentioned Ike earlier.
Yep.
Ike's disability is, he's deaf. So what did we do? We hired an interpreter who's now a TD employee, an interpreter. Who would have thought an interpreter would be working for a bank just to help Ike navigate? How many companies do you think are going to do that? Those are the companies you want to follow. Those are the companies you want to work for. So Ike today is happy. Why? Because yesterday when he came to our event, who came with him? His interpreter. Jonathan, who is blind, came to our event yesterday. Been with the bank for 12 years. He's a senior leader at the bank right now. He came with his seeing eye dog, Phelps. And what do we do for him? We support him with every assisted technology he needs to be as successful as anyone else. Those are the companies that you want to work with. Those are the organizations that are out there. It's not like we're the only one. Honestly, I wish I could say we're the only one. It'd be easier for us to recruit you. What's nice about it is every organization realizes it needs to be inclusive. It needs to make sure that it's a reflection of the very customer base that it has or the very communities where it lives. So to your question, that's not a barrier. What that is, that's a commitment of trust between you and your hiring manager or the recruiter in this case. Yeah.
Thank you.
Milo?
What if your boss isn't who they say they are? Like, I've been at a school recently, my old school, quad preparatory school, was supposed to be a school for people who have disabilities in a therapeutic school, except it shifted from that to a school where they were completely ableist, prejudiced against people with autism and ADHD, such as myself. And I was a victim of discrimination from the head of school, the administration, hell, even some of the teachers there. So what if my boss is, well, if I work anywhere that's supposedly friendly for people who are neurodivergent, isn't who they say they are, and they're actually, ableist and just unfriendly to people who have disabilities. Like, for example, if I take a job at TD Bank, and my apparent boss at the moment is, you know, kind of a SOB. What do I do?
That's a very good question.
That is a very good question. And it's also a very personal question, so thank you for asking that. I would tell you this. You want to choose who you partner with carefully and closely. In this case, perhaps you didn't have total ownership of that. But I will tell you right now, any manager or leader in our organization, like the hundreds that I'm talking about, created the experience of the lack of trust or respect that you're describing that you did not get. Guess what? That person would not be with the organization. You wouldn't find anybody like that at TD, because guess what? They would have been the ones ushered out of the company. And I don't know of anyone like that. Meaning where I'm at, but I've been in organizations like you're describing, and I won't mention them by name, where that was not the case. So I made my decision. That's not where I want to work anymore, because their values don't align to my values. It's really, really important to make sure the things that are important to you, make sure the organization you're working for, that what's important to that organization aligns to what's important to you. That's really critical these days. It didn't matter as much. We talked about that earlier. It didn't matter as much 10, 20, 30, in my case, 40 years ago. It matters a whole lot now, and companies understand that. They understand that you may say, that's a great job offer, and I love the salary. To your question about money, I've never thought I could have all of this right now. But you know what? I didn't get a great vibe from the hiring manager. I didn't feel like he had a level of respect that was important to me to make sure I was going to be set up for success. So I'm going to go ahead and decline. People do that now. And you know what? That's the right thing to do. Because you don't want to be in a situation where you take a job and you find yourself in a situation that's not tenable, meaning you don't feel like that's where you want to be for the rest. But you want to work for an organization that you know is going to provide you with that foundation of trust that's going to make you feel like you're set up for success.
Yeah.
But who you're describing, and your name is Milo?
But, yeah.
Milo, who you're
Milo.
describing, I don't know anybody that in my organization, and we have 91,000 employees.
Yeah.
Because
But let
it's
me-
important for us to hire as well the people that we think are aligned to what we're looking for as a culture.
Yeah, but let me tell you. Like on Wednesday, I was at Five Guys, right, after school. I saw a teacher from my old school, but like one of the nice ones, one of the nice teachers that actually cared, you know. I told them why I left Quad and all that's happened. And then a parent of a student at Quad asked me, is this true? And I told them, yes, everything that I'm saying here is completely 100% true. I would know because I went there. And then a teacher from
Like, I think it's important to, like, let's continue to do more questions, but let's talk about that. Can I do my hand?
I was trying to say that a teacher came up and
We,
tried to deny it.
yeah, Milo, thank you for that. We only have a minute, so wanted to get through her question, and then we can talk offline as well.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your question. Yes,
Yeah, how do I become a boss, mayor, and owner of the studio?
okay,
Whoa,
wow. You
amazing.
want to be a boss, an owner,
Yeah.
and what else?
A mayor,
A mayor,
yes,
like a mayor of a town,
a mayor of the studio.
a mayor of a studio. Well, okay, so the first thing you have to do is you have to decide, you have to understand what are the career talents that you have to be all three of those. And there's probably 3 or 4 things you absolutely have to have.
Yeah, what?
Well, yeah, that's one of our, yeah, we'd all appreciate that. What I'm saying is, you gotta say, you have to say to yourself, okay, here's what I know, here are the skills and experiences I need to have to be able to have all of this. And then you have an honest conversation with yourself and you say, and here's where I'm at today. And then you're gonna say, okay, what do I have to do to make sure I get from here to here? Meaning I close that gap. What are the skills? What's the education I need? What's the job experience I need? And then you find yourself here. And we call that really doing a needs assessment. I need to be here. I'm here. What do I need to make sure that I do that allows me to go ahead and move in that direction? And that's career development. And you want to make sure, again, career development is important to you. It's not just the job, but where does that job take you to where you want to be? Meaning what your North Star goal is, which is how we describe it at TD. What's your North Star? Beautiful way to describe your career, the North Star. It just sounds beautiful. It's out there. I can attain that. What do I need to do to get there? You want to make sure you have somebody that can help you build that career development path to get you to your North Star. You can do exactly what you want to do. You should not put any limits to yourself, but you should understand what are the required skills and experiences I need to have to get that job,
Very good.
and all the money that comes with it, to your question.
So I have to work for money.
You don't have to work for money, you can work for passion, work for the things that are important to you.
Thank you for that question. Well,
You guys don't want me to be like, a cheapskate Scrooge McDuck after all?
We want you to be who you want to be.
I guess I'll be a cheapskate Scrooge McDuck man.
thank you for your question. Well, listen, I think we're just about out of time, but I do wanted to give you, John, the last opportunity to share any parting words that you may have.
So, work really hard in school. You know, start thinking about what you want to do 1, 3, 5 years down the road, if getting a job is important to you. Start thinking about what are those organizations that I think I'd want to be an employee of. Start doing some homework, research, just read about them. You know, you can set up your own Google search and say, here are the 5 organizations I love. I just want to follow what they talk about. And do that. And then start thinking about, how do I find the jobs that they have that I may be interested in, even entry-level jobs, right? Was what we're probably talking about. But know that there are resources out there that can help you connect to those organizations that are looking for you. Because they're looking for somebody who's going to come into the organization that has the same passions that you have, that they have as well. And then hope, you know what? You find ways in which you differentiate yourself. You don't have to write a letter to a CEO like I did many, many years ago, but it made all the difference in my life. Had I not done that, I wouldn't have found the woman I married. I wouldn't have 3 children that I have today, and I wouldn't have the 6 grandchildren I have. Sometimes the stars just align, but it's not by luck. It's by what you have done to control your destiny and doing the right things that you know are going to put you in a good place.
Right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Thank you for attending. And of course, John, thank you for attending here today and speaking to us. I think we learned a ton.
Thank you for the invite. Good luck to you all.